Hello, gentle viewers. This is Indian welcoming you to a new series of Tabletop Simulator with For the People 2nd Edition. This is supposed to be a specific Civil War battlefield, I think. It looks kind of like Devil's Den in Gettysburg, but if you actually know... No, that can't be Devil's Den. Little Round Top's not that high. I don't know what this is meant to be. Anyway... this is in my opinion, the best American Civil War board game that covers the entire war. Designed by Mark Herman with the art by Mark Simonich, you're going to see a lot of similarities between this and, say, Hannibal. So this is actually the third game in the so-called We the People series. So, that Mark Herman created. Along with Mark Simonich. So this is For the People 2nd Edition. There's also We the People, which covers the American War for Independence. That's been supplanted by Washington's War, which is, in my opinion, the far better game. And if you want to be instantly famous on Steam Workshop, somebody make that mod, please, for Washington's War. The second game in the series is actually called Successors, about the Civil War among the successors to Alexander the Great, which I did not know existed, and I just found out they are producing a 4th edition of it. So I have already pre-ordered that, and once it comes in, and there's a quality tabletop simulator mod, expect that game to come to this as well. If I like the first and the third game of the series, I don't know why I wouldn't like the second. So this is For the People 2nd Edition. There's some changes between this and the 1st edition, but I never played the 1st edition, so... And, by the way, Mod Maker, mad props for including the Spanish language cards. I don't read Spanish nearly enough to play already a fairly complex game, so I'm just going to delete this. But it's really cool that it exists. And we're going to do some shuffling here. So, this is a card-driven war game in which the Union is fighting the Confederacy, and there are specific objectives for each side. The Union can win the game at any time if the South's strategic will... Oh, these should be reversed, by the way. If the South's strategic will ever hits 0, then they win the game. Does the Union. If at any point the Confederates have double the strategic will of the Union, they win the game. The Union can also win the game by destroying all of the resource bases in the game, like Fayetteville, North Carolina here, and taking every port in order to get a complete blockade of the Confederacy. Which has actually forced the Union player to eventually at some point take the Mississippi, but... because otherwise there's no way you can guarantee that you will end up taking Baton Rouge. There's also a very nice one-time bonus for taking the whole Mississippi. Finally, if at the end of the game, in the last turn, in spring of 1864, the game can end a little early because of the traditional November elections which happened in the Union. If the South has achieved certain criteria, they can win the game. Otherwise, if the Union holds 10 states by the end of the game, they win the game. So let's talk about a specific state and talk about how they work. You'll notice the Union states do not have these numbers or strategic will. That's because the Union cannot lose their states. However, there's some pretty gnarly things that the South can do to make life a lot more difficult if they do take significant areas in the North. But otherwise, any state taken by the Union can never be lost by the Union. So that is one very important aspect of the game. I'm going to bring this empty bag. There's a very important reason for this. It just makes more sense for it to be over here. I'm also going to take all of these Confederate markers, just every last one of them, and I'm going to bring them to the south side of the board by the Confederacy. It just makes it a little bit easier for me. And then all the Union markers can stay up there. That's fine. What else do I need? So, but for every other state in the game, it can be taken by the Union or by the Confederacy. 3 states are border states at the start of the game. Missouri, Kentucky, and West Virginia. And you'll notice these numbers here. So 7 is the number needed to exert control, and you must have that control at the end of a turn. 9 is just the total number of spaces. And here's the strategic will bonus for the first person to take it. So the richest prize is either Kentucky or Missouri, and then West Virginia. If the Confederacy takes any of the 3 neutral states, they count as Confederate and give them additional units. However, once the Union takes any state in the game, it never goes back to the Confederacy. That's a very big element of the game, and it's important to keep in mind. So a lot of the early scenarios, if you do decide to play this game the first time, you decide to play, say, the 1861 scenario, you're going to be fighting over the border states pretty severely. The other thing I need to explain before we actually get started is how units work. These are called SPs. I don't remember what the S stands for. I thought it was strategic, but maybe it's not. An SP is a strength point. There we go. Confederate Union troops are considered equal. However, there's also generals. And the generals are a critical part of this game. Managing your generals effectively is possibly the most important thing to winning the game. Delicious. So, let's look at Albert Sidney Johnston here. Every general in the game, first of all, has the number in blue, which is called the political rating. Higher political rating guys basically want to be in charge of an army or have some important role to play in playing the game. So, if you don't promote the most politically astute generals, it actually costs you strategic will. The other number next to that, the big 2, is his strategy rating, and that is the value of card you must play to play him, or higher. So you could use a 2 or 3 to move Albert Sidney Johnston. The last, we have their offensive and defensive ratings. The one on the left is offense, one on the right is defense. And each side has very different generals that create very different scenarios for the game to occur. As the game progresses, more and more generals get added in. For instance, spring of 1862, we see not only Robert E. Lee, but Nathan Bedford Forrest, 2 of their very best commanders. Then they get Stonewall Jackson and Longstreet. And the North doesn't really have anyone equivalent to Lee until Grant, and then Sherman. So it's going to take a while before the North can approach the level of raw skill that the South has in terms of its generals. And that is reflected in real life, because a pretty substantial percentage of generals that went to West Point ended up joining the South for various reasons that I don't really feel like getting into right now. Every turn is broken into 6 phases. First, we do reinforcements. Second, we deal cards. Then we actually play our cards. Then we do political control. Then we do attrition, and then we end our turn. So, is there anything else you need to know how the game works? There are 4 kinds of formations in this game, and these are important because there's reasons to have one or the other. So first of all, there are armies, and each side can only ever have 4 of them, and only the North has one at the start of the game, the Army of the Potomac. Armies can have up to 15 strength points, and they can move 6 spaces a turn, plus they have a special way that they can move, where they can instantly convert enemy spaces, which is pretty great. Then we have corps. Corps are much smaller, but much faster. Corps and divisions can also use a special kind of movement, where if they only use railroads, they can actually add 2 more spaces. Then we have divisions, which are 3 units with no general. And last, but certainly not least, we have Cavalry Brigades. Technically, it says max size 1 SP. That's actually not true, because there's a couple cavalry generals that actually have 2. But other than that, they're very, very fast. And they can do certain things really well, but not other things. Here's a strategic will. Change of fortune is incredibly important. If you lose, if you go from a positive to a minus, you actually lose 3 extra strategic will on top of whatever else you'd lose. On the flip side, if you go from negative to positive, you actually gain 2 more. So, I think that's it. Before I start playing the game. Now, as our turn tracker hopefully reminds us, there's no reinforcements on turn 1. So we're actually going to start the game in the second part of the reinforcement phase, which is strategic redeployment. Or sorry, what do they call it in this game? Strategic movement. The Union can move troops from one port to any other port, and either side can move any unit as far as they want to, as long as everything is connected by a railroad. The North can do this 15 times per turn. There's this lovely tracker to help you remember that. And then there's 7 for the Confederacy. So one of the first things the Union's going to want to do, because they're going to go first, is they're going to want to beef up the Army of the Potomac. To that end, we're going to take this unit from Philadelphia and these 2 from Pittsburgh, so that counts as 3 moves. 1, 2, 3, and we're going to pump up 1, 2, 3 the Army of the Potomac. We're also going to want to make sure that we're in a position to affect the border states. So I'm going to also take 2 more units out of Indianapolis and Columbus. I'm going to convert 1 to a 2. We're going to send them to Cincinnati. 1, 2. Fremont here has 2 units. I probably want to get him 1 more. But I could also make the Army of the Potomac even bigger. Especially because the South can't cross this river. There's reasons for that I don't really feel like spending a bunch of time on right now. But it is worthwhile to have something there. So where do I send my Springfield, Illinois gentlemen? Probably to Cairo. Oops. Okay. So I finished my strategic movement, and this just goes right back up to the top. It's just a tracker, so I don't do too many moves. The Confederacy can only do 7 of them, and notice that there's lots of breaks in their rail network, which was true historically as well. It is possible to get to Richmond by means of Culpeper. Now, Beauregard starts the game with 3 troops. And we really want to form the Army of Northern Virginia, but there's no reason to rush that. Is there a railroad out of Richmond there? There is. Okay, brilliant. So I'm going to give this soldier to Beauregard. I mean, there is always the chance that Butler could go right after Richmond. So there's definitely... there's definitely a reason that you might want to actually retreat as the South. But Butler only has 1 soldier, so he's not a huge threat. He's also really hard to move. 3 cards aren't that common. Who else might we want to move as the South? I'm going to take this guy from Mobile, and we're going to go ahead and send him over to Richmond. Just so that there's something there in case Butler gets ornery and we decide we don't want to deal with this shit. I would love to strategically redeploy this guy, or maybe even one of Polk's, but I can't do that, so we're just going to ignore that for now. And then our turn is complete. So both sides, I didn't even track it because I knew it wasn't going to get to 7 with the Confederacy. So both sides have done that. There's no generals on the first turn of the game, so the next step is very simple. We're going to deal cards. And this turn tracker reminds me, I need to deal 4 cards to each player. So the first 3 turns of the game are very short compared to the rest of them, which is why it makes a great 1-hour game. Maybe even 2, if you just wanted to play just 1861. And you can do that, and there's scenarios for just playing 1 year of the war, which is pretty neat. So I'm going to get 4 as the Union, and then the Confederates also get 4. Okay, so the first thing I need to check is, does the Confederacy have a major or minor campaign? And they don't. Which means the Union goes first. So, every card in the game has one of several things you can do with them. Let's go over them in order, because every card has value to it. So, the first thing you can do with any card is play it for the event. Now, it's extremely important that if you play a card, it has to be, if you're playing it as an event, it must have your color, or it must be dual colored. So the minor campaign here is both blue and gray. This is just gray. So the Union player is not going to use this card for the event, nor would he wish to. In addition to playing it as an event, you can also play it to move an army. You can play any card to move a division, or for anything that has a general, you must play that general's general rating or higher. So I could get really squirrely with Benjamin Butler if I wanted to and try to drive on Richmond early in the game. That's maybe not ideal, especially because he's actually fairly weak. But if we somehow took Richmond, here's the big deal. The South would instantly lose one of their resource bases for the rest of the game, which reduces their ability to get supply, and they take a pretty hefty penalty for losing Richmond. So maybe that's what the Union might consider. The second thing you can do with the card is you can create an army. You can play any card you wanted to do that, and then it has to be on a space with at least 5 troops on it. And you get to determine who the commanders are, with a couple of things being relevant to that discussion. So that's possible. The third thing you can do with a card is you can fire a general with it. And there's reasons to do that, like if certain generals suck, cough, cough, Fremont. You can use it to fire them if they're in the command of an army. Now, the cool part about being a general is a corps is if you activate the army, you can pick any general you want to, which is pretty exciting. Unless you're defending, in which case it's the most politically active general. So that's another thing you can do. You can build a fort. Confederates, there's a limited number of forts in the game. The Confederates can only ever build using a 3, and the Union can build on a 1, 2, or 3. And so we're going to put these up top by the Union, just so that everything's in one nice, neat place. There's also one other thing that you can do, which is you can actually move a general. I believe that's the reorganized general card here. Yeah. And any card can move any general. And generals move 10 spaces or unlimited as long as he's a railroad. So if all you want to do is move a general somewhere, you can also do that. So that is what we face at the beginning of this game. Now, I definitely want to beef up the Army of the Potomac, and I especially want to add additional commanders to it. So, I've got a minor campaign to move 2 units. And there's a bunch of things I could do here. If I attack Richmond, is that a battle I can actually win? Probably not. Without getting into how battles work just yet, know that Richmond will get a +2 modifier. And because they're not fighting an ungarrisoned fort, they actually can't necessarily win it. So they'd basically have to hope that the Confederates rolled a 0. Which is actually not possible. So Butler, even if he attacked, would be guaranteed to lose. So that's not a very smart idea. I could just move into Williamsburg to try to start to take Virginia. I could start getting started in Kentucky. I really need more generals, and most importantly, I need generals who don't suck. I could use Fremont and start pushing into Missouri. We have lots of strategic options. It's just not clear what the best one is. Is Butler in a port? Does Fort Monroe count? It doesn't. Okay. So technically something I did last time I did my test game was actually cheating, but that's fine. We could try to, I guess, surround Beauregard, but I don't like our chances there. So what do we want to do? Let's start by asking ourselves that question. What would be the best use of these cards we have in our hand? And Beauregard is not attacking Washington, D.C. That would be suicide. More likely he'd attack Frederick, Maryland. And I would have to respond to it. I mean, he does have 4 troops. You know what? Let's clean this up a bit. I'm going to delete those. And we're going to come down here. And we're going to grab him a 4, which is the reverse side. Oh, no, it's the other side of the 3. That's right. There we go. It's just less to keep track of. Beauregard could easily defeat this army and Frederick. That's not the issue. We could also have Joe Johnston attack here. And the reason I'm talking about this is because I want to know, as the Union, who am I most afraid of? Of all of the things that are scary to me, who is the scariest? Let's go ahead and play this level 2 card. We're going to start with that. And we're going to activate somebody. The question is who? No, I can't activate Fremont, because Fremont would require a 3. I can't activate the Army of the Potomac either, because McDowell requires a 3. So basically, I could either relocate a general, or more probably, just do a division move. And I think that's what I'm going to do. Johnson just has 1 troop, yeah? Yeah. So I'm going to go 1. And then, oh no, wait, the northern troops are up here. 2. Divisions can drop people off, if I remember right. They just can't pick up people. Yes, they can. Okay. So that's my turn. That's all I did. So what's going to happen is at the end of this turn, assuming the South doesn't do anything crazy, those will change to being northern. Oh, wait a minute. Wait just a doggone minute. I need to refresh my memory. If the political control flips Yeah, okay. So that also works. Okay. I could also just place 2 markers, because that's something you can do with cards. I didn't mention that, but it only works in neutral areas. But I think this is better, and then we can always reconsolidate later on. Heck, you know what? Let's put you in Frankfurt. There we go. That's all I did this turn. I divided up this army to go ahead and get some things done here. Alright. The Confederacy's turn. Now they've got a couple of cards that just completely boost and do lots of strategic will stuff. And to be honest with you, there's not a lot of incentive for the South to be really aggressive early in the game. The biggest weakness of the South is that the Union always gets more reinforcements than they do. And could Beauregard attack Frederick, Maryland, and win that battle? Pretty easily. But he also risks bringing in the Army of the Potomac. Or does it? You see, in order to roll an intercept, you have to beat your defensive rating. Basically, he'd have to get a 1 on a die roll of 1 to 6. If he did that, he'd have a pretty nice chance to win this battle here. Now, the other thing Beauregard has to consider, though, is how far could he get? That's a very important question. Would it make more sense to use Johnston to attack Harper's Ferry? Probably not, because they have more troops. And you can only ever in a small battle do 1 casualty unless you get a 10+ as your die roll. And that would definitely qualify as a small battle. So what would probably be the most, if we wanted to be aggressive, we'd probably attack Frederick, Maryland, and force the Army of the Potomac to either attack me as Beauregard, and I'm pretty good at defense. I am pretty good at defense. Or attack Harper's Ferry with Joe Johnston. I could start to try to wear that down. Oh, that should have a Confederate. Oh, no, it's already automatically Confederate because it's Virginia, not West Virginia. Whereas I think Harper's Ferry is. No, Harper's Ferry is Virginia. Okay. So Beauregard could attack Frederick, Maryland. And there's a lot of value to that. If the Confederacy ever takes 3 spots in a Union state, at the end of that turn, they're going to get a pretty decent-sized boost to strategic will. And the Union's going to lose some. If they take a capital, they actually reduce the Union's ability to get reinforcements. So that's really interesting news. That said, does it make sense to attack with Beauregard? Or does it make more sense to attack with Joe Johnston and start trying to wear this down? If I had a minor campaign, I could attack both of them at once. Because all Harper's Ferry is just 2 units. That's all it is. So that's not really a big deal. Beauregard could move and attack Butler, reestablishing a coastal fort wouldn't be the worst decision in the world. But I don't think this fort ever actually exists because coastal war forts can't be rebuilt. There's actually a Union coastal fort. And it's not like he's a real threat to us right now. Now, if they got another corps commander there, that's something. That might affect us. So, do we retreat with Beauregard, or do we get aggressive, or do we send Albert Sidney Johnston? No, he's only got one unit here. And that is an issue. So he's not really in a position to do much. Polk is pretty trash. Price has a unit. I could send him after Springfield, and we could maybe try to do some legwork here. Like, moving Price into Springfield, Missouri isn't a terrible idea. The problem is I don't have any great ideas. And there's a lot to be said for the South just sitting tight to see what the North does. So I think but attacking Frederick, Maryland is maybe the one thing I'm pondering. And here's why. It basically forces the Union to pay attention to me. The Army of the Potomac could very easily, if they wanted to, grab these extra units and then attack Joe Johnston in Winchester, Virginia. That is a thing that is well within their capabilities. And it's something that's worth concerning ourselves with as the Confederacy. It's something that's very disconcerting, potentially. We could also create the Army of Northern Virginia, but we don't have the troops for that. I could move Joe Johnston over, but then that leaves the Shenandoah Valley vulnerable, and then they can like try to maneuver around and attack Richmond. So there's a lot of different things that the South could do, but it's not clear that any of them are better than anything else. So I think what they're going to do is I think they're going to play Brazil Recognizes the Confederacy as an event and get themselves 3 strategic will. 1, 2, 3. I know that was a lot of thinking to essentially do nothing, but it was important that we thought about that. No, I got this big old 3 burning a hole in my pocket. And I think I'm just going to go ahead as the North. I'm going to spend that 3. I'm going to play 3 strategic markers in West Virginia. It's not that West Virginia is that great a state, but it's very easy to take. So that's the Union's turn. And the South is then going to play this Contraband of War card. And what do they want to do? No, they're not. They're going to save this card. And the reason they're saving it is because it'd rather spend Cabinet Intrigue and reduce Union Strategic Will by 3. So that drops to there. And then we would flip that over to a 10 and put it over here. There you go. Back to the Union with their 2 minor campaigns. Now they could blow one to try to take Kentucky. They actually had to send both of them, though. And while that wouldn't be a terrible idea, there certainly have been far worse ideas in military history. I don't think it's the best use of that card. The question is, do we move the Army of the Potomac and attack Beauregard at Manassas? It is historically what happened. I don't think that's a good use of that card yet. I could move Fremont. One of the things we're going to eventually want to do is take this fort in Dover. Or even just clash with Albert Sidney Johnston. So I think what we're going to do is we are going to play a minor campaign as the minor campaign. Kentucky's a border state, so I can actually cross into Louisville if I wanted to. Maybe that would be a good decision, because that way Kentucky becomes Union-controlled at the... Kentucky gets one space closer to being Union-controlled. I could take Paducah, Kentucky. That's going to basically force Albert Sidney Johnston to make a response. And that's fine if that's what they... If that's fine if that's what I want to provoke. If I want to provoke Johnston into some sort of confrontation in Kentucky, I think that's a pretty solid use of our turn. So I think we're going to do that. So we're going to take Fremont and his corps, and we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. We're coming down to Paducah, Kentucky. That was 1. That was the first thing we're going to do this turn. The second thing is Ben Butler does nobody any good just sitting there. So we're going to move... Where did his troop go? Okay. We're just going to move over here to Williamsburg. And you can't intercept because you need a general to intercept. So that's my turn as the Union. Wait, did I actually play a card to do that? I didn't. Sorry, I should have played one of my minor campaigns. There we go. Severe Storms at Sea is a nice card. It stops them from naval movement, but I don't have a need for that. I think we have to do something. And there's a couple of somethings that we could do. There's a couple of incredibly important somethings that we could do. I could pull back Beauregard. If I do that, it frees up the Army of the Potomac to go after Joe Johnston. I could move with Johnston and attack Harper's Ferry. And there's certainly no guarantee that we'd win that battle. In fact, I'm fairly certain we wouldn't win that battle. But it would at least reduce the Union's forces. Or Albert Sidney Johnston could just get squirrely and decide attacking the Union in Paducah, Kentucky would be really smart. So I think it's exactly what's going to happen. We're going to use Johnston. Yeah, we're actually not gonna do Battle of Bull Run, or Manassas if you're on in that part of the country. So we're gonna take Johnston and we're gonna go 1, 2. We're gonna grab this guy in Dover. And now, Fremont cannot intercept because he has a value of 0. And because the Confederacy has a fort here, they can actually cross the river. He's going to go 3, 4. And that would have given him, what, 4 troops, right? Yeah. Right? He started with 1. He picked up 1. He picked up 2. Yeah. So he's moved 4 spaces. And now he could attack Fremont. And there's some value in doing that. He can't get into Cairo because of the river crossing. So we have to attack Paducah. But if he did that and started breaking into Illinois, that would cause a lot of issues. The other thing I could do, because remember, he's only moved 4 spaces. He can move up to 8. is Johnston can start going after Missouri. Can they move into... Can they cross at New Madrid? They can if they have control. And they don't have the necessary fort to give them control over the entire Mississippi. They basically have to put one in Vicksburg in order to accomplish that. Which they don't have yet. Do we attack Fremont? Now, there's a pretty good chance we'd win that fight. In fact, there's an excellent chance we'd win that fight. Because Fremont's not very good. And we actually outnumber him now. Wait, Johnson had one. There was one there and one here. You know what? I think he should have 3 troops. I could rewind and find out how many he had to start the game, but it's just not worth it. I'll check the manual. Because it's going to depend on if he started with... it's going to depend on if he started with 1 troop or if he started with 2. So, bear with me. Go away. Strategy. Start there. Okay, Johnston starts with 1. There's 1 in Dover, Tennessee, which he just picked up. And there's 1 in Columbus, Kentucky. So, okay, so he picked up 3. So then 3 is correct. So Johnson could attack Fremont. It would be a small battle. Not much would be decided, but we could at least push him aside. Potentially. That's one possibility. The other thing we could do is we can't cross at New Madrid. Can we? Dover covers the Tennessee and the Cumberland rivers. No, this is on the Mississippi. So this isn't good enough. We'd have to build a fort in order to cross directly into Missouri from there. And I can't go to Cairo. I have left Nashville open. It's certainly not impossible for the Union to use that. So I move 4. Do I just go back to Dover and sit there and see if Fremont moves? Or do we attack Fremont? Which would force him to retreat to Cairo, and then I can basically block him from going any farther. Plus I take Paducah, Kentucky. Oh no, he's got 4 units. Does our good pal here. I mean, Fremont's not my pal. I think Fremont was a terrible commander. So here you go. So technically, Johnston is not outnumbering him, but he's the better general, so he's got a higher chance of winning. The thing is, if he attacks Paducah and he loses, there's nothing stopping Fremont from... Oh no, Fremont can't go right to Dover because of the fort. Fremont could try running the guns to get to Pittsburgh Landing. Is Dover? No, or he could go to Clarksville, for instance. Or he could just attack Dover, I guess. If we attack Fremont and win, Fremont has to retreat to Cairo, Illinois. Which means I don't have to worry about him invading until he gets much, much stronger. And I know the Union knows that he's a garbage leader, so they're going to be very tempted to ignore him. And that's worthwhile in and of its own. So I think the first battle of the Civil War, incredibly, is going to be here in Paducah, Kentucky. So the first thing that we must do is decide how large this battle is. I have 3. Fremont has 4. That's 7. 7 is considered a medium battle. So the next thing to do is we calculate the battle die modifier. The units are roughly the same size, so there's no force ratio to worry about there. I get a +1 for Johnston, because he's a good general. And then it's just a flat-out die roll. So there's some risk here. But if we win it, it's worth it, and it's unlikely that Fremont would win it. So we're going to roll 2 dice, and we add 1 to the Confederate die. The Confederates got 6, the Union got 1. So the defender here, on a 1, they cause 1 damage. So Johnston is going to lose 1 of his units. But then Fremont, because of this 6, Fremont loses... Yeah, attackers roll, defender result. They lose 2 units. Does Mr. Fremont. And because they lost more units, they lost the battle. So Fremont is forced to retreat to Cairo, Illinois. And Johnston now holds Paducah, Kentucky. Okay. No strategic will changes because the battle was too small. Now, I have an opportunity as the Union. I have this last minor campaign. Beauregard could intercept me if I move the Army of the Potomac. And more importantly, it would be child's play for Beauregard to take Washington, D.C. So we definitely don't want that. If I move off Washington, D.C., and I don't instantly attack with it to back him up, that greatly reduces our abilities here. But you know what? I want to take West Virginia this turn. So I think I will do a minor campaign. I'm going to do a very, very boring move, but it's an important one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that means he's going to flip Parkersburg, which means West Virginia will join the Union, as they did historically. I am totally fine with that as our first move. Then our second move. I could give Fremont some reinforcements. If I move to Frederick, Beauregard actually gets to intercept. To try anyway. And I don't think he'd succeed. And if we could win at Manassas, we'd push Beauregard back, and that would basically secure Washington, D.C. For the short term, at least. Because basically only Johnston could get there, and he'd have to get reinforced pretty substantially in order to accomplish that. So I think that's actually what we're going to do. We're gonna get squirrely here. So we're going to move up here. I'm going to delete that unit, and then we're going to absorb it into the Army of the Potomac. And then Beauregard has a decision to make. He has 4 units. He can either choose to intercept, or he can wait to see what the Army of the Potomac's going to do. If he tries to intercept, and he succeeds, he gets a +2 to his modifier, which is pretty significant. That could be the difference between winning or losing this battle. If he doesn't succeed at it. However, he can't retreat. Now the question is, does he know what the Army of the Potomac's going to do? He knows that they're not going to go to Harper's Ferry unless they come right back. And then Johnston can try to intercept him. And Johnston has a much higher chance of succeeding at the interception because of his, he's got a higher defensive rating. On the flip side, though, if he did decide to go to Harper's Ferry, and Johnston fought him, he'd get massacred. So Johnston almost certainly would not intercept. It would basically be suicide. So that's one movement. We're going to use two. We're going to go to Harper's Ferry. We're going to pick up these. So that's going to add two more. 1, 2. Is Johnston going to roll to intercept? No. He would get massacred. It wouldn't even be close. So he's going to say, no thank you. 3, to go back to Frederick. And then Beauregard has to decide. Because of this movement pattern, he realizes I'm probably going to get hit in Manassas. And things have actually changed. By adding those additional units, it's now 11 to 4. Oh no, 11 to 4 is not quite 3 to 1, which is what you need for the bonus. 11 to 4 is just shy of that. So it would be a big fight, and it basically each side would have a +1. Unless Beauregard successfully intercepted, then he'd get a +2. Then again, he could just sit there and do nothing. But he doesn't want to do nothing, because he knows he's getting a pretty giant pile of reinforcements. And he can only have so many units in the army. So Beauregard is going to try something. He's going to try to intercept. It's not going to be easy. He basically has to get a 1. But he's going to try it. He didn't get it. And so the Army of the Potomac invades Manassas. So, first thing we do, of course, we add up the size. It's 11 v 4. That's 15. Which is not enough for a large battle, I don't think. It needs to be 20. So it's another medium battle. Irvin McDowell is a +1. And we also get a +1 for Beauregard. So it's basically a flat die roll. Because there's not enough other differences to make anything here. So we're open for big numbers for the Union, small numbers for the Confederacy. They both got the same, which is 5. So, we come over here. If we look at the medium here, on a 5, each side loses 1. The Army of the Potomac has to go back. They don't get to advance. And that ends that last Union move. I have 2 points left. Do I want to attack Fremont again? With Johnston. Yeah, I don't think he can cross in Memphis because Memphis doesn't have a fort. And they can only cross if the Union doesn't have naval control. Oh, you know what? With Columbus, they can cross. Yeah, they can cross. Because this is the rule. If the river starts in the south, and it does, it's the Mississippi. Any space between a fort that's upriver from a fort is not Union naval control. Yeah, it's all upriver as long as it's, yeah. So I can basically cross freely from Memphis to Madison if I wanted to. Missouri is really quiet right now. It's super duper quiet. So there's something to be said for having Price start to wreak a tiny bit of havoc. So that's what we're going to do with our last card. I mean, I could just place 2 political control in either Missouri or Kentucky, but it's not likely to make much of a difference, is it? No, it's not. Yeah, so I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to play this card. And... oh. What if I bring Johnston over to Beauregard? Shoot, I could have Johnston go after Pennsylvania. I mean, it's only 1 unit, so it's not like it would be a big threat. And he can't auto-flip, but he could move into Harper's Ferry and just try to pressure them a little bit. Or I could do what I was planning to do, which is go ahead and bring Johnston over to Manassas. It does leave the Shenandoah open, but there's a reason I'm doing this, which is mostly to make sure that we have 2 commanders, so we can start getting more of an advantage when we're doing corps level moves. So that's all we're going to do, and that concludes the first turn of the game. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to check and see if anyone needs to change their capital. They don't. So we're going to see every space with a friendly SP is going to get a unit. It's going to get a political control, excuse me. So there's 1 there. There's 2 there. Here's 1 here. Where else do we have units? Paducah, Kentucky is going to be Confederate. Price never moved. These are already Confederate spaces. Yes, so that's what happens. The next thing that happens is we determine if any states change hands. And here, one of them does, West Virginia. We have 4 of the 7 needed. So we're going to put this big old blue flag here. And we're going to put U.S. political control markers in all other West Virginia spaces. This instantly gives the North 5 strategic will, which flips them first to the positive side. So that's going to give them 7. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And now they have 1 point more than the South. So a pretty even turn, all things considered. The next thing that happens is we're going to do attrition. And attrition works very, very simply, as you're reminded here. If a space has 2 units or less, it loses nothing. If it has 3 to 6 units, they lose 1. Johnston only has 2. Fremont only has 2. Beauregard and Johnston have 4, so they're going to lose 1. And the Army of the Potomac is going to lose 2, because they're already at 10. So we're going to do that. And that's all the attrition that happens. No one is out of supply, so they don't have to forage. So we have ended the first turn of the game. So it's now summer of 1861, and now we do a proper full turn. So the first thing that happens is the Union gets their reinforcements. And they get as many as 18. Yeah, 18. So it's not small. So the first thing that they're going to do is they're going to get 8 reinforcements in Washington, D.C. Next, they get 6 anywhere in Ohio or Indiana. We're going to go ahead and put them in Cincinnati. It was 6, right? Yeah. And if you think I planned for that six men, you're right. Then I get 4 anywhere in Illinois or in St. Louis. Fremont is sitting here with 2 units. Let's give him 6. And that concludes the Union reinforcement phase. The Confederates get 1 per state. So I'm going to grab a 1 here and I'm going to clone it. Because one of the hardest things for me to remember is if I've used all of my units or not. So do 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They also get more units if they take a border state, but they didn't. So they get to put 1 of these in each state anywhere they want to in the state. So we're going to put 1 in Live Oak, Florida. We're going to put 1 in Macon. We're going to put 1 in Marshall, Texas. We're going to put 1 in New Orleans. We're going to put 1 in Jackson, Mississippi. We're going to put 1 in Selma, Alabama. We're going to put 1 in Little Rock, Arkansas. We're going to put 1 in Nashville, Tennessee. And we're going to put 1, most importantly, with Mr. Beauregard here. So we're just going to delete that. You notice that's not enough to have 1 in every state, but it's a pretty decent mix. Next, we would have blockades to worry about, but we actually don't have to worry about that this turn because the Union doesn't have any blockades set up yet. So we get 1 in every blockade zone. So we're going to make 4 more here. And we're going to put... They have to go in the blockade port, right? Yeah. So it's any of these ports that has an arrow pointing to it. So we're going to put 1 in Fernandina, Florida. We're going to put 1 in Norfolk, Virginia. We're going to put 1 in Cedar Key, Florida. And we're going to put 1 in Sabine City, Texas. That's the Confederate reinforcements. Now, we're going to do strategic redeployment. I'm going to shift these guys all into Lexington. So that was, what, 7 units? Yes, that's... Yeah, that's 7 units. And then this guy in Parkersburg's just kind of hanging out. Let's bring him over here too. And then, by the way, the Army of the Potomac is getting max sized. We're going to send 5 more units. I'm going to send 7 units. Yeah, that's perfect. If I just send everybody but 1 there, 1 left in Washington, D.C., we have fully reinforced the Army of the Potomac. The Army of the Potomac. There we go. And there's still 1 guy garrisoning Washington, D.C., just so Beauregard doesn't get too sneaky. Now the Confederates get their 7 moves. Let's see. We're going to take this guy from Norfolk. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we're going to send him up to Manassas. So that's 1. I'm going to put... Can I get up to Johnston by railroad? No, I can only get up to Columbus. That's fine, though. I can always just send him there. So we're going to take these 3 units, and we're going to send them to Columbus, Kentucky. So that's 3 more. 1, 2, 3. I've still got 3 left. And I think we're going to go ahead and take 3 more over to Beauregard. Okay. Done. Both sides have done their optional moves. The last thing that happens is we're going to place our generals. Union always goes first. So all these Union generals are going to get tossed in this bag here after I flip them over. We're going to shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. So I need to decide where I'm going to put these units. So first thing that's going to happen is I'm dropping one of them over here. I'm going to put one over by Fremont. Make Fremont's core a bit stronger. I'm going to put another one right here. You can have one equal to 1 plus the number of SPs you have. I'm going to put 2 in the Army of the Potomac. I've got 2 left. I guess... yeah, I guess we'll just do that. So remember, right, you can place a general anywhere as long as there are as many SPs. Boo, 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 boo. Generals, bringing into play 10.6. There has to be at least 1 SP per general. Okay. That's fine. Now the Confederacy gets Edmund Kirby Smith, Braxton Bragg, and Jeb Stuart. They get the first cavalry unit of the game. And cavalry is pretty important. You'll also notice it actually tells you which one a cavalry general is. That's intentional. So we start out with cavalry. That's going right here. Regular general, I'm going to go ahead and put you here. And one more. I guess I'll put you out here in Marshall. And we'll see what that gets us. So, now we reveal all of the generals. So, we have Rosecrans, Don Carlos Buell. I don't know why I flipped the Army of the Potomac. And they're both going to join as subordinate commanders. McDowell still is in charge. So, that significantly increases our ability to win battles. Over here, though, we have Jeb Stuart. And something weird happens when you get a cavalry general. They take one of the VPs, or the SPs, and they get their very own token that also includes an SP. So Stuart is both a general and he's a unit. He is an absolute unit, in other words. Okay. Let's move west. We have George McClellan, Halleck, and Banks as our generals here. We then have John Pope and Ambrose Burnside. There is Edmund Kirby Smith. We have Braxton Bragg over here in Texas. I think that was all the generals, right? Yes. Okay. All right, we have now completed the reinforcement phase. So now we deal our cards, and this time we're each going to get 5. Go 5. And then we're going to go 5. Do the Confederates have a major or minor campaign? No, they do not, which means the Union player goes first. And they got another minor campaign. Very nice. So, as the North, there's a couple of things I would like to do very, very much. I'd like to create a couple of armies. Specifically, I want to create one over here in Ohio. And I want to create one over here in Kentucky. That is a thing I would like to do this turn. The question is, do I want to do that first? And here's the really bad part about this particular turn. It's not the worst part. But this does mean, unfortunately, that I do not have... oh, that's right. Divisions can't enter enemy-controlled spaces. It didn't matter because they were friendly, or they were neutral, so that doesn't count. But other than a minor campaign, I only have one other card that I can use for moving units. But the rest of my cards are actually pretty strong. But I do want to go ahead and create an army. And so I'm going to go ahead and spend Wilson's Creek, because it's not that useful. And I'm going to play it to create an army, and we're going to create the Army of the Tennessee. So, this comes out onto the board. I have to name a commanding general, and that commanding general is going to be George Brinton McClellan. It is an army of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 units. So we're going to take this SP marker and put it at the 9. And he gets Henry Halleck and Josiah, I think his first name is, Josiah Banks as his subordinates. Banks is pretty trash. We might want to send him somewhere else later on. But that is what we do with that card, and we don't have any strategic will penalty because McClellan was the most connected guy on the board. A 10 is the highest level. So, we now have McClellan in charge of the Army of the Tennessee, and that concludes our first play. Now, the South would very much like to do something similar. Oh, however, we can also get 2 SPs with Bragg. Absolutely, we're going to play that card. Like, without a moment of hesitation. Because that makes Bragg a much more dangerous competitor. And I can use him to maybe cause some havoc. If I get him into a place where he's more useful. So, it's Union time. I know I've only got 2 more chances to move McClellan. And I really do want to move McClellan, because I'd like to try to take Kentucky this turn. Or at least move along those lines of taking Kentucky. The other thing I could do is I could try to use this one of these ones, but these ones are so good. And I want to wait until they form the Army of Northern Virginia, and then I'm going to try to kill Stuart, if I can do it. Oh, the target general is random. That's annoying, but whatever. Maybe we'll get lucky. Mm-hmm. I could even send McClellan into Tennessee. Why are those spaces have this blue part at the bottom here? Oh, is that the... What? What is this blue part there mean? I'm not sure. There's something special about these cities in Tennessee, and I can't remember what it is. And these cities in South Carolina, North Carolina. What is with these blue spaces? I don't know. No, it's not that. So I'm very quickly flipping through the manual to find out why those spaces are blue. I honestly don't know what the purpose of those blue spaces there is. How random. Let me see here. Why are you blue? Are you just sad? Sorry, if I don't find the answer in the next couple of seconds, I'll just look it up next episode. Because the pink means it's a resource space. You know what it might be? It might relate to lines of communication. It might be that they're always considered to be in supply, even with other things not being available. That could be it. Because they're not part of the Mississippi. They're not... I bet there's some kind of card that affects that. Yeah, that's fine. I don't really care right now. I bet there's a card, then that's why that matters. Anyway, so I got a couple options here with good old George B. I can take Kentucky this turn, or I can go into Tennessee. And either of those things would be quite nice. I'll be honest with you, they would be quite nice indeed. And I think we're actually going to go ahead. So I already played my card, right? No, I didn't. We're going to play the Trent Affair. There we go. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. You may be asking, why are you only moving 6 spaces? Well, there's something super cool about the way armies work. As long as they take 2 spaces to move, they instantly put down political control markers. And I'm staying along the rail lines, by the way, because that way I have some other options if I need them. And let's see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes, I can take them without worrying about Paducah, Kentucky, or Columbus. Kentucky. Or is that Columbus, Tennessee? It's Kentucky. Okay. Okay. So, over to Team Confederate. And now they've got a bunch of cards they cannot use for most things. They want to create an army quite badly. And I think that's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to make the Army of Northern Virginia by playing the Richmond Bread Riots. Ironic, don't you think? So, these jerks all do this thing here. 3... So it's going to be 7 units in the Army of Northern Virginia. The commander is going to be... I really don't want to make Albert Sidney sad, but he doesn't have enough troops, so I'm going to ignore him. And we're going to make Joe Johnston the commander of the Army of Northern Virginia. And this is why that's relevant. There's going to be a small strategic will penalty, because there's one general on the map who is actually more powerful than he is. That's more better. God, what's wrong with me? That is better connected. But it's only going to be if there's any general on the map. It's a one-time thing. It is going to actually cost him 5 points because of change of fortune. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But it's worth it because they need an Army of Northern Virginia more than they need an Army of Tennessee right now. They're going to place Stuart in as the cavalry general, which is going to give them a pretty powerful advantage if they decide they want to fight a battle. And then Mr. PGT Beauregard is going to be another general. So that concludes their turn. Now, the Union sees very, very clearly they would love to kill. Like, let me put it to you this way. All of these generals are actually pretty decent, but a chance to kill Stuart is something that cannot be missed, in my opinion. The alternative would be to go ahead and play the elite unit. So here's how elite units work. They're very simple. I'm just trying to see if they take an SP or not. I don't know, remember if they replace an SP or not. Yes. And it gives you a permanent +1 to that army. And I'm sorely tempted to give that to McClellan. And you're like, but why wouldn't you want that over here? If we do not deal with Stuart, we will never be on an even footing with the Army of Northern Virginia until we have our own cavalry. And the good news is we are going to get our own cavalry next turn in the form of Bill Stoneman. But that's 2 turns away, actually. So that's not ideal. So I think we're going to play Costly Mistake. And we have to determine... and we can only target a subordinate general. So basically, we're taking a chance on trying to kill Stuart or injure him or injure Beauregard. So first thing that's going to happen is we need to roll to randomly determine which subordinate general. So we're going to roll 1 through 3 is Stuart, 4 through 6 is Beauregard. We got Beauregard. And then I roll another 1 through 6. And PGT Beauregard is DEAD Beauregard. He is dead and gone forever. I was hoping we'd kill Stuart, but I'll take it. Beauregard never comes back, and we have completed our turn. That's basically, this is similar to what happened to Stonewall Jackson. Okay. Now, the Army of Northern Virginia is an interesting beast because it's got a pretty high modifier that also eliminates their modifier because they have cavalry and the North doesn't. This is actually a winnable battle for the Army of Northern Virginia. The question is, isn't it a battle that they would like to fight? Or do we want to start trying to put Albert Sidney Johnston in a stronger position by strengthening his core? And I think we're going to do that first. I'm going to go ahead and play a strategy board. Because then I can actually create another army here. So I'm going to go boop, 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 boop. Give me a 5. And then we have Smith and Johnston here. And that's going to be it for my turn. I could technically, because it's a core, I could pick them up and then attack this formation here. But we'd probably lose. I mean, Fremont would be default to being in control. So he actually can't intercept anyway. He's the worst. I would love to get rid of Mr. Fremont once and for all if I could. But I can't right now. So, I mean, continuing to move with this army, with this group, would be interesting. But the problem is this giant wall known as George Brinton McClellan and his army. That is not a fight that we're going to be winning very effectively. So, I think we're going to go ahead and... I think you should be here. And we're just going to sit tight. We're not going to move any farther. And we can now use a subsequent card to make another army if we so choose. And getting Johnson in charge of an army is definitely something we wouldn't mind doing. So, back to the Union. I'm going to get an elite unit. And we're going to get John Reynolds, Black Hats, and we're going to put them not at... The Army of the Potomac, because it's a guaranteed +1. I think that makes sense. So John Reynolds' Iron Brigade is now in the Army of the Potomac. We come over here. We're going to go ahead and play this too. And I think we do go ahead and make the Army of Tennessee. I still think that's the smartest play here. So we're going to do precisely that. We're going to make the Army of Tennessee. Note it's not the Army of the Tennessee. That belongs to the Union. So we're going to take 5 troops. Put that here. Put this in Paducah, Kentucky. I'm going to name Johnston as commander. Because there's no reason not to. And he's actually a really decent commander. Especially compared to the Union. And then Edmund Kirby Smith is going to be his subordinate. Okay. And then the North is going to play their minor campaign. And this is going to raise a very interesting question. And that question is, do we attack the Army of Northern Virginia? But let's do the easy part first. We're going to do 1, 2. I'm trying to figure something out here. I'm trying to figure out if I can go from Clarksville to Dover. Because there's a land connection. So I don't think that ever matters. Yeah, I think that's accurate. Oh, the Union can always cross rivers. Okay. Yeah, the Union can always cross rivers. Okay. So 1-2 for Bowling Green. 3-4 for Clarksville. That's Tennessee, mind. No. Hang on. 3, 4, 5. It gets us Kentucky. Yeah, we're going to do that. And then we're going to come back to Lebanon. Because I have a very specific plan, and that plan is to go after Fort Dover next time we get a chance. That's one unit dealt with. I do have the option to use one other army. I mean, I could move Ben Butler to, like, Norfolk and then close it off. That at least reduces... I mean, I do have to shut off all the blockade ports. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, and then at the end of his turn, he will flip Norfolk to Union control. And that's it for my turn. That is it for the Union turn. We now get our pals in the Confederacy. They drop their last card. They could just put 3 PCs into Missouri. Or they could activate Johnston and attack Cairo. I could also move loser-ass Polk. Polk wouldn't be a bad choice. Have him join up with Price as a third axis and a possible third army that could then start pushing in this direction. Or get Bragg up there, too? I like the idea of getting Bragg, actually. So, I'm going to move Bragg, and it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're going to pick everybody up. We're going to delete this and this. I'm going to put you in Fayetteville, Arkansas, with Price as your subordinate and Bragg in charge of the Corps. And that now concludes the second turn of the game. However, we still have 2 more phases to go through. First of all, we have political control. And the Union has taken another state. They've taken Kentucky. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Which gains them 10 strategic will. Which is very spicy indeed. We're just going to go boop. Actually, we're supposed to do that after we flip anything underneath a friendly space. Norfolk, Virginia now belongs to the Union. Nobody else really moved into enemy territory last turn. Things were kind of quiet. Which is fine. It's extremely fine to me. Yeah, we're done. Next we do attrition. This space has 6, so it's going to lose 2. Or it's got to be more than 6. Otherwise, he just loses 1. So there we go. You have a lot. Oh, you have 6, so you just lose 1. The Army of Tennessee is going to lose 1. Northern Virginia is going to lose 2. Army of the Tennessee loses 2. The Potomac loses just 1. Any other large formations on the board? I don't think so. Yeah, there isn't. Okay. Attrition is done. We now end the turn. At the end of this turn, because of war weariness, the North is guaranteed to lose 5 points. We also don't get reinforcements. This symbolized the 90-day volunteers and their enlistments running up. So, we will not get any reinforcements, but we do still get our strategic moves. I think the Union is good where it is. I mean, I could pull this guy into the Army of the Potomac. I guess I should. Because they can't cross the river. So we're going to do that. Anyone for the Confederacy to move around? Not really. I could take these 2 units and put them in the Army of Tennessee. I think I'll do that, actually. Oh, I can't. Because there's no rail connection. They'd stop at Columbus. I might as well just move the whole bloody army if I'm going to do that. So I don't really care about that. I got this guy here just kind of hanging out. I'm going to railroad... No, I don't want to leave Nashville undefended. But there's also very little I can do to stop them. Which is kind of yikes. George McClellan could very easily burn Nashville this turn. And that would be an interesting development in the game. Assuming I have a card that I can move him with, of course. So the Army of Tennessee may actually well have to play a little bit more defensively than I'd anticipated. I think we're good. I don't think we're going to move anybody. Oh, you know what? Let's pull this guy into Richmond. Just make sure we've got a nice little army there. All right. We now place generals. Only the Confederates get generals this turn. I don't know why I just hit the shuffle button before I put him in the thing here. Where would I like to place you both? I wouldn't mind having a commander in Richmond. And then I think I'm going to put somebody else with... Yeah, we're going to give a subordinate to Joe Johnston. So we're going to go flip. He gets Pemberton, which means this must be... Actually, I'm going to put Van Dorn in the Army of Northern Virginia as well. So there we go. Because you can have you can have as many subordinates as you want to, but you get the benefit from... No, I'm going to put it in the Army of Tennessee. Sorry. Also makes it a very aggressive army, because they get a +3 if they're attacking. That's actually pretty spicy. All right, we get 6 cards each. I don't know why I just randomly shuffled it. I shouldn't have done that. Oh well. It's done. Okay. Once again, no minor, no major campaign. Confederacy cannot go first. The Union goes first. They got 2 more minor campaigns. Holy shit. Ooh, I can remove or demote any from Army Command to General with no SW penalty. Or I can remove any general from the game. That's pretty spicy. I definitely want to get my blockade established. So I think this is an easy choice for our first card. Give me Cape Hatteras operations, and now I have a naval blockade level of 1. What does the Confederacy have? 3 units for 3 strategic will. Nice. Reduce Union. Nice. Oh, that's filthy. Do it. Draft rights in New York. I have to remove 3 SPs, and it's the Union's choice, which means they're all going to come out of the Army of the Potomac. 1, 2, 3. Very nice. Back to the Union. I'm gonna level with you. Leveling Nashville sounds like a pretty good way to spend some time. And then trying to take down the fort in Dover. That would be a pretty bold move. And I've got 2 minor campaigns. The only other thing I would consider, in all honesty, would be... okay, let me check something really quickly. I have 12. Army of Northern Virginia has 5. I'd need all 15. That actually hurt. Losing those 3 SPs. Well played. That stops me from getting the bonus for that. Until I get cavalry, it just doesn't make a ton of sense to attack with the Army of the Potomac. It just doesn't. I could basically just send Butler down the coast. Corps can enter enemy-controlled spaces, right? It's only divisions that can't? Let me make sure that is accurate. I know divisions can't enter enemy-controlled spaces, but I'm pretty sure the Corps can. Not counting battles, of course. You can always move with battles. Where are you? Core units. Pow, 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 pow. Yep. Corps can move anywhere they like. Okay. Only divisions are restricted. They cannot enter. So, I mean, one thing I could do is just keep trolling and just take more blockade ports. I mean, it's a very slow process, but it could be done. I could also create a new army. The Army of the Ohio. But the problem is my generals here are all kind of garbage. So I think leaving it as a core is pretty stupid. I could do it to get rid of Fremont. That's such a good use of this card. Because Fremont is trashed here. He will never be helpful. I mean, so was Butler by that stretch of the imagination. They're both equally useless. But at least Butler can do something. Butler can move around and take ports and stuff. If I keep getting minor campaigns, 3s aren't the end of the world. Yeah, I'm really tempted to nuke Fremont from orbit. Then at least I could put Burnside. No, I'd still take strategic will penalty because of Butler. I get Curtis and Stonemason next turn. Or Stoneman, rather. Curtis isn't great either. What do I wish to do here? Who do I hate more? Butler or do I hate Fremont more? I probably hate Fremont more. Let's go and use Personal Advisor, and we're going to get rid of Fremont. He is being removed from the game. We'll never see him again. That was critical, I think. That at least means that we have some competency, and we can move more easily if we do make an army there. All right. I love the Southern Religious Revival card, though. The question is, where would I want my 3 units? Do I want to beef up the Army of Tennessee even further? Or do I want to beef up the Army of Northern Virginia? I think beefing up either army would be pretty spicy. The other thing I could do, though, I would love to actually have another army coming out of Richmond Or even just a corps there. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to play Southern Religious Revival. We're going to lose 3 Strategic Will. So sad. 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to put a 5 in Richmond. And this way, I could go squish Butler if I wanted to with a general next turn, which might be smart. Because otherwise, Butler's just going to keep causing trouble. Alright, Union time. I can move 2s pretty easily. The problem is I don't have any 2s in command of anything important. All I have is 3s. I could move Burnside's corps, but I think... Do I make this into an army? I could. I mean, I would still lose 2 Strategic Will, which would actually turn into 5. Because Butler will get salty about getting passed over for command. So maybe I don't rush that. I could start trying to place political control in Missouri. It'd be nice to have that, but I'm also a long way away from accomplishing that. I want to save these cards until I see if the Army of Tennessee is going to move. Because that's my issue right now. I am not at all concerned. Well, I'm relatively unconcerned. Or what I could do. I could take Burnside with 4 troops and merge him into the Army of Tennessee. That's actually really smart. Or Pope, actually. I think I'd take Pope because I'm going to be more aggressive with that army. So I'm going to... Basically, I mean, it's going to open up the Army of Tennessee, though. It's going to be able to attack Cairo. So maybe I just take Pope and 1 guy and move him. Yeah, let's do that. It's mostly because I want to make this army a bit stronger. So Pope is going to take a guy, and he's going to join the Army of the Tennessee, and he's going to make it a tiny bit stronger. And I'm going to play this Confederate River Flotilla in order to accomplish that. I could have just moved the general, but it's worth it to spend a card just to move an SP as well. Okay. Confederacy's turn. This would cost them 5 SW. You do that when you can. This is going to flip. And it's going to reduce it down here. And then down here. And then this gets removed from the game. Okay. I think it's minor campaign time. So we're going to go 1, 2... And we're going to... Wait, do I have to take Dover first, or can I attack Nashville first? I can always cross a river. I can never be stopped from crossing a river. I just can't use riverine movement. So I go 1, 2. This is technically a proper battle. It's not going to go very well for the Confederates, I don't think. But it is technically a proper battle. So we need to fight it. The Union troops get 2 of their subordinates. We're going to pick Pope and Halleck. So that's a +2. And they have a stupidly huge force difference. They have greater than 5 to 1, so you get another +4 for that. There's a chance I could lose a general doing this. This is not without risk, but it needs to happen. Oh, wait. No, it doesn't. I don't think I can actually lose a general if I attack with more than 3 to 1. I think I'm immune from that consequence. Yeah, the attacker can never make general casualty rolls. So I'm just going to roll... I'm going to roll both sides, but it's unlikely the Confederacy's one unit's going to do anything. It doesn't. It didn't even hurt us. It didn't even slow us down, really. No, I tell a lie. It is technically a medium battle, so they do inflict one loss on me. But I eliminated him, so he can suck it. So we're going to go 3. So that was... We started in Lebanon, right? So... Or do we start in Louisville? No, we started in Lebanon. So 1, 2, 3... And why am I placing a political control marker here, I hear you asking? Because I also get to place this marker. The city of Nashville is now destroyed, which means this is one less supply source for the Confederacy. Lock that down, please. And then give me this here. And they instantly lose strategic will. I'm trying to see if they just lose it or if I also gain it. Yep. So I gain 5, which actually counts as gaining 7 because I'm going to switch. I'm going to change my fortunes. And they're going to lose 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's currently 116 for the north and 76 for the south. This has not gone well for them. And we're still not done. So 1, 2, sorry, we're 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5? Yeah, 4, 5. Put one here in Clarksville, Tennessee. And then we're going to attack this fort in Dover. Now, whenever you fight a fort that's ungarrisoned, you get an automatic +4. And there's pretty much no way that a fort can win the battle as long as you have enough troops. Yeah, I got a 10, which is enough to ensure that I won. So I get a +7. I'm still going to roll. Yeah, I won by a lot. They just get a flat 4. So they actually do 1 damage. Like, the fort actually made us lose a soldier. But then we burn the fort to the ground. Which, by the way, also gives us a strategic will. Anytime the Confederates lose a fort. Or do they just lose 1? No, yeah, it's they lose 1, I add 1. Very productive minor campaign, and it's not even done yet. Because that was just the first army. We're going to take Mr. Butler here, and we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to come here to Morehead City. And that concludes this particular turn. So, we have 2s and a 1. Do they want to make another army? They won't make one with Bragg. They can make the Army of the West. But I think it's more valuable for them to actually... No, I think creating an army is actually pretty smart, because then I can start taking Missouri if I make them into an army. So we're going to play this 1 card, and we're going to create an army. And we're going to call that the Army of the West. It could also be the Army of the Mississippi. It'll eventually come to the Mississippi. So I guess we'll call it that instead. with 5 troops. I'm going to name Braxton Bragg the commanding general of the Army of the Mississippi, with Mr. Price as his subordinate. There's no strategic will penalty because the South doesn't have a 10 general that doesn't already have a command. Because Johnston is the only one who had that. So, that concludes my turn there. And now we're in a bit of a pickle as the Union. We would love nothing more than to cause some damage to the Army of Tennessee. The trouble is the Army of Tennessee is actually... Oh, it's 4 units. I'm 6. So let's do some quick math here. If I attack the Army of Tennessee, who actually should have had a chance to intercept me. I'll say they just chose not to do it. It's not like it would have made a big difference. They only would have gotten a 1. They would have had to have beaten a 1. They weren't going to do that. Because as long as this army is sitting here, it is a threat to the Union. I could try to go after the fort first, though. I could use my first base to take Dover. Be 1, 2, 3, 4. They get a chance to intercept, which is fine if they did it. But if not, I would actually be fighting the fort. And I'd be able to destroy that pretty easily. Which would only further strengthen our control over Kentucky. Plus, it opens up the Mississippi for riverine movement. That's pretty strong. That's a pretty good play. And then we could really cause chaos. The question is whether it's worthwhile to attack the Army of Tennessee with Burnside first. No, Burnside would get his ass beat. He wouldn't have any modifiers. So, I know who is in charge of their army. So they would get, if I attack them, they'd get a +2. I would get a +2 for my 2 subordinates. So it would be an even fight with both of us getting a +2. I think it's worth it. I really think it's worth it. No, I do not want to go to Columbus first because I'm risking... Basically, here's what will probably happen. I'll attack them, and they'll retreat into Columbus. Which is fine because then with my other minor campaign move, I'm going to collapse Burnside into the Army of the Tennessee. I like it. That's perfect. Let's do that. So I'm going to play my minor campaign. Now I'm going to move McClellan. And we're going to attack. It's a straight up 2v2. We're going to have +2 to each of our die rolls. Most importantly, we need to say how big this battle is going to be. They have 4. I have 6, so it counts as a medium-sized battle. Okay. Come on, big blue numbers. We tied. We each got a 6. So, on the defender's roll, so the attacker actually wins this fight because they lose 2 and I lose 1. So 1, 2, 1. The Army of Tennessee has to retreat It's going to retreat here. We'll say I use my first base of movement to drop down a political control marker there. So that's 2. I could attack them again if I wanted to, but instead I'm going to go 3. Oh no, I'm going to use 3 to do that. 4. Burnside gets added as a subordinate. And moves up to 9. And then 5. And then we're just going to stop there for right now. Because we're actually in a really good situation here. And it's unlikely the Army of Tennessee is going to be moving anytime soon. So that concludes my turn as the Union. Now the Confederacy gets to go. I think it's time for them to return the favor and do some damage in the west. So we're gonna play this card to activate Mr. Braxton Bragg. It's gonna go 1, 2, 3. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and then with their last card, the Union gets to move a 2. There aren't any right now. They could create a new army, but actually they can't. They could build a fort. Oh, sorry. A deleted fort, a destroyed fort, actually goes onto the tracker here. And that's just, it becomes something they can use later on. Fortifying Paducah is not the worst thing we could do. I can't move Butler. I can't attack with the Army of the Potomac. I guess we put down 2 political control markers in Missouri. One in Ironton and one in Greenville, perhaps. They play their last card. And Bragg's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What this means is Missouri's going to become a Confederate state, I do believe. Because New Madrid counts as part of Missouri, which I didn't realize. So they got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 because of New Madrid. Which is pretty great, right? What does that do for friendly spaces, I wonder? Pow, 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 pow. It only places them in empty spaces, fair enough. Okay. So we have concluded our third turn. Now let's do the political control thing. So first, we flip spaces with friendly SPs. So this little bit of North Carolina now belongs to the Union. The Army Tennessee is fine where it is. Both of them are. We're going to be losing some folks. Oh no, now we determine state. The Confederacy does take Missouri. Which instantly gives them 10 strategic will, which actually turns into 12. So that's going to put him here. They desperately needed that win. It's also going to give them another SP and reinforcement. Other states have changed hands. Then we do attrition. Army of Tennessee doesn't even take any. Northern Virginia and the Army of Mississippi both lose 1. Tennessee loses 2, as does the Potomac. This force in Richmond is going to lose just 1. And I think that's the only large formations left on the map. Okay. Attrition is done. We now move on, and it's going to be 1862 next turn. A lot of very interesting things are going to happen this turn. The Union is doing well. They're currently rocking 117 strategic will compared to the Confederacy, which only has 87. But the Confederacy is going to get some extra reinforcements. And so will... Oh, interesting. Let me check something ultra quick. Do I have to take a coastal fort if I can attack it from land? This is going to be very significant, I think. Because I don't think it would matter if I can access it from the ground. Let me see here. Yeah, I don't think there's anything stopping me from just going into Wilmington and taking that port. Except somebody crushing Benjamin Butler, which is probably going to be happening very soon here. Okay. So that's going to conclude 1861 in our first episode of this game. I'm going to try to stick to 1 year per episode. Things may go quicker or faster. Ooh, I also have to cost the Union 5 strategic will, which actually becomes 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I forgot because of war weariness, they lose 8. I think the Confederates were there. So, it's now 87 versus 105, which is much closer. But yes, I think each episode's going to cover 1 year. I don't know if we'll go to 1865 or not. A lot will depend on how the game works out. This is a very big year for the Confederacy because they get Robert E. Lee. And I don't know who's going to end up getting control of this corps, but I hope it is Lee. And then he'll probably go and squish Benjamin Butler, which is going to definitely make me sad it's not. I do get my first Union cavalry next turn, and that's going to be extremely important because then we can attack the Army of Northern Virginia without worry. Although Stuart is still very formidable. Things are going to be interesting next episode, but that'll be for next episode. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, this has been Indian, and I bid you good day.